Welcome back, everyone. The White House denying access to a list that shows who has visited 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. When asked by a reporter if the White House feels it's needing to hold secret meetings, Press Secretary Robert Gibbs said this.
There are obviously occasions in which the president is going to meet privately with advisors on topics that are of great national importance, yes.
In the pundit pit today, David Bossie, president of Citizens United, Nina Easton, the Washington editor for Fortune magazine, and Dan Gerstein, Forbes columnist. All right, good morning to all three of you.
Good morning. Good morning.
So the whole issue here, Nina, is the transparency issue, because the Obama administration had said that they were going to be more transparent and different than any other administration.
And look, I think the Bush administration resisted releasing these names as well. I mean, every White House wants a level of privacy. The difference here is that this administration has set itself up as the transparent administration. We're going to open up our books and we're going to show you how we do business. So I think every time that they don't measure up to that, we're all going to jump on them.
Mm-hmm. David, your organization actually filed an FOIA as well, Freedom of Information Act, to find out who's coming to the White House.
That's right, because we went back to look at the Clinton years, the healthcare task force, and all the different folks they had in the big donors that were living in the Lincoln bedroom and going on the Air Force One trips. So we wanted to see, was the Obama administration doing the same thing? And of course, we will never find that out unless we litigate it, and we plan to.
Mm-hmm. Dan, Robert Gibbs also went on yesterday to say that the issue remains open. They may, in fact, change their mind. Do you think it's a big deal?
No, but I think they will change their mind because they're going to have to. I mean, the courts forced the Bush administration to open up, and they're going to have, the same thing that will happen with the Obama administration. I'm a little disappointed because, just like Nita said, the Obama administration set a high bar. And I think what you're seeing is, because of technology, certain members of Congress are actually now posting their schedules online. And I think that is a really healthy trend. They're out there saying, look, I want to be open. I want everyone to know what I'm doing. I'm doing the people's business. And I think there's a real opportunity to kind of build credibility and trust with the American people if you're that open.
Back, we're still in the pit. President Obama getting some criticism for his neutral views over the controversial election in Iran. Is this the right move, or should the administration be taking a stronger stance on Iran? We're back in the pundit pit. All right, Dan, let me turn to you, because a lot of people criticize the president for his measured response, as you called it. Some people called it timid. Some people called it not taking a stand. Why was it the right response?
Well, I think he's got two very difficult competing interests he's trying to deal with. One is to encourage the democracy forces in Iran, show sympathy, make sure that we're standing up for the principles that we espouse, but at the same time understanding that the regime is most likely going to stay in place. We're going to have to deal with them. There are a lot of sensitive issues. He's trying to walk a fine line. Personally, I probably would like to see him a little bit tougher and a little bit more declarative in his support, but I think you're starting to see that. And I think what you see with him is there's a pattern, and this happened with what happened with Russia during the campaign. Initially his instinct is to be cautious, and as time goes on, he starts getting stronger and stronger.
Some people have criticized, though, that it's a lot like when he was in Chicago politics and he voted present all the time, that he really hasn't taken a stand, and now we're talking about international issues where America's decisions affect the rest of the world. Nina.
Well, I completely agree that I think he needs to make a stronger statement to some extent, but I do think measured is right, because what you don't want to do is make the subject of the conversation America, which Ahmadinejad is very good at doing. The regime is very good at making the subject of the conversation America as opposed to this evil regime. You know, an interesting historical analogy, and it's different, but when Pope John Paul went and spoke to solidarity workers under this oppressive Soviet regime, it was a very dangerous time, and he knew how to speak to them almost in code so that he didn't get them in trouble, he didn't provoke a crackdown, and then Ronald Reagan could come a few years later and say more loudly and declaratively his support for the democratic forces, but by then there were democratic institutions in place, and there was you need to nurture this. If this is really going to be a revolution, a democratic revolution, you have to carefully nurture it.
I'm not sure anyone agrees that Iran will be a democracy, but David, I know you disagree.
Yeah, well, I don't fool myself. Iran is our enemy. They will continue to be our enemy. Look, do I think we need to have nuanced positions, and the Department of State needs to have the leeway to be able to make deals and try to nurture democracy the President of the United States has to be a strong leader and has to tell the leaders of Iran and North Korea and rogue nations across the globe that that's enough, and we're not going to stand idly by while they crack down like Tiananmen Square.
Yeah, even Bill Maher, the comedian who is very much in support of Obama, said that he needs to be more like President Bush and take a stand on certain issues, which I found was very fascinating. And Dan, I found your comments this morning fascinating because you're disappointed in a way.
Well, I would like to see him just be a little bit stronger, but his comments are starting to evolve. I mean, there was an interview with John Harwood where he used stronger language. I think as in the next day or so, I think you'll see more of that.
All right, Dan, Nina, David, thanks so much for your time this morning.